part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Dennis Manoloff Show, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. The producer for this program is the great Jordan Powell. We come to you on Monday, February 7th, in a celebratory mood because as I look at the NBA Eastern Conference standings, I see the Cleveland Cavaliers at 33-21, one game back of first place, admittedly in fourth place, but just one game back of the Miami Heat. The Heat at 34-20, the Bulls at 33-20, and the Milwaukee Bucks at 34-21. Cavaliers are 17-9 at home, 16-12 on the road. Along with the Memphis Grizzlies, they are the feel-good story of the NBA. So you have co-feel-good stories of the NBA. The Memphis Grizzlies in the West and the Cleveland Cavaliers in the East. Among the numbers, I caught this on ESPN today before we came on the show. Defensive rating for the Cavaliers, 105.3 is first in the East. Assists per game, 26, third in the East. Rebounds per game, 45.3, fourth in the East. Dunks, I made that one up, but it's an actual stat. I put that on the ESPN graphic. Cavs ranked second in dunks in all of the NBA and first in the Eastern Conference. But here's the key that I got off the ESPN graphic. Title odds, according to Caesar Sportsbook, 40-1 in the East. That's the sixth highest odds in the Eastern Conference as far as title odds go. Before the season, the Cavs were 500-1. Think about how far the Cleveland Cavaliers have come to go from 500-1 odds to 40-1 odds. It's just a remarkable story, and it keeps on getting better. Yesterday, ahead of the Cavs playing host to the Indiana Pacers, General Manager Kobe Altman swung a deal to land Caris LeVert, the scoring guard from who else? The Pacers. So Pacers arrived in Cleveland, and LeVert was supposed to be in the starting lineup, but he wasn't anymore. I think there was a call that was made by Altman while he was at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, and Caris LeVert was done with Indiana, at least for this season. I mean, you never know if he comes back later in his career, but right now he's a Cleveland Cavalier. Turns out Caris LeVert's final game for the Pacers this season, 42 points and 8 assists in a loss to the Chicago Bulls on Friday. According to Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN, the full trade is Indiana sends Caris LeVert and a 2022 second-round pick via Miami to Cleveland for Ricky Rubio, a lottery-protected 2022 first-round pick, a 2022 second-round pick via Houston, and a 2027 second-round pick via Utah, per sources. In other words, Kobe Altman landed Caris LeVert for no one who's actively playing, no one who's on the active roster. The only player that was moved, Ricky Rubio, and his expiring contract at the end of the season, has been out for the season since late December because of a torn ACL. So Kobe Altman managed to get Caris LeVert to Cleveland without having to give up anybody who is currently playing. Now, is LeVert a superstar? No, he's not. Is he without flaw? No, he's not. But he's exactly what the Cavaliers need. They need scoring, preferably in the backcourt or the 2-3 swing position. Caris LeVert, 6'6", out of Michigan. Ohio native, by the way. That's good. 27 years old. This season averaging 18.7 points per game. 4.4 assists and 3.8 rebounds. When I looked at it, I thought to myself, the Cavaliers just acquired a 6'6" Colin Sexton, because the Cavs were desperate to replace Sexton's scoring, his ability to put the ball in the basket, which is hard to do. Not everybody can do it. Colin Sexton could and can and will continue to do so. Who knows what his future holds as far as teams go, but he will be a scorer for the duration of his NBA career. 6'1", Colin Sexton in 218 games, all for the Cavs. 20.0 points per game, shooting 45.8 from 2-point, or 45.8 overall, 37.8 from 3. Caris LeVert, 6'6", 27 years old. 299 games, 43.7 overall field goal percentage, 33.4 from 3, 14.7 career average. But in his past 3 seasons, he's been scoring close to 20 a game. So when I look at this trade, I do it through a realistic prism. If you're going to ask Kobe Altman to acquire a player who can help this team, who is relatively young and who you might be able to retain going forward, I don't mind Caris LeVert, especially when I realize that Kobe Altman didn't give up a player who's on the active roster. And you heard some reports that the Pacers were interested in Isaac Okoro. I'm glad that Kobe Altman resisted there. This is a really good trade for the Cleveland Cavaliers, at least for now. I mean, we don't know how LeVert's going to translate, but I have a pretty good bet that it's going to be a nice fit. The way the Cavaliers are going, the chemistry that they have, and LeVert talking about how he can't wait to join the Cavs and all he wants to do is win. I think it's going to be a really good fit, but we'll see. They still have to play the games. And as of now, I'm looking at this rotation because the trade deadline is February 10th. But given that the Cavs landed Caris LeVert, who was a guy that was on many teams' radar, you would think, I'm not sure they go out and get somebody else at this point. I don't know. And if it is, it's going to be a small piece. That's why I can talk about what one of my favorite guys, Cavton Kirk on Twitter, Cavtin, Kirk, absolute Cavaliers diehard fan, and he's a great follow on Twitter, at Cavton Kirk. Nobody deserves this Cavs renaissance more than he does. But he was asked about a 9-man rotation for the playoffs, for the upcoming playoffs. And he threw out there what I think most people would think: Darius Garland, Caris LeVert, Lauri Markkanen, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen as the starters. Love, Okoro, Jetty Osman, and a combination of Rondo and Goodwin as the reserves. And, Rondo and Goodwin split minutes, so it's essentially a 10-man there. But he also mentioned that he sees that a possibility that Okoro would eventually start over Lauri Markkanen, but time will tell. So you think about this rotation, either down the stretch or certainly into the playoffs. Garland, LeVert, Markkanen, Mobley, Allen, Love, Okoro, Jetty, and then a combination of Rondo, Goodwin. I really, really like that. And it's exciting. It's beyond exciting to think about what the Cavaliers can potentially do, because you can't be reminded enough of where this franchise has come from. You know, the previous 3 seasons were disasters record-wise. Last season was 22-50. Last season, for part of it, Andre Drummond was on the active roster. Kevin Love was a malcontent, or so it appeared, so it seemed. His body language and his words certainly didn't dissuade anybody from thinking that. So the Cavaliers seem to be in a bad place after the 3rd season post LeBron 2.0, after the 3rd season of the rebuild post LeBron 2.0. I was questioning, when is this rebuild going to come to fruition? Kobe Altman stuck to his gun. He was probably one of the few that was like, hey, I got this. And I was like, really? Okay, we'll see. Well, here we are, season 4, and they've exploded. Seemingly out of nowhere, except, again, if you're Kobe Altman and his trusted lieutenants, you feel like, all right, I knew what I was doing all along. But for most of us on the outside, we've been stunned by this season. And to think that they're 54 games in and just 1 game out of first place in the Eastern Conference at 33-21 is nothing short of remarkable. So the Cleveland Cavaliers just continue to impress. And by the way, I don't want to let this game go without talking about it. Last night, after the Cavs acquired Caris LeVert from the Pacers presumably were going to get boat raced by the Cavs. It was at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, as we said, and the Pacers are bad to begin with. And then they subtracted Caris LeVert. So you're like, oh, the Cavs are going to roll. Except they didn't roll. The Pacers got up on them 20 points in the second quarter and were leading, 68-61 after 3. So you're thinking, my goodness, I mean, how could this be that the severely undermanned, semi-rebuilding Pacers, who are bad to begin with, were going to come into Cleveland and beat the Cavs? Admittedly, the Cavs without Darius Garland and Lauri Markkanen, in addition to Sexton and Rubio. But now we don't talk about Rubio anymore because, he's not with the team. Even though his contribution was immeasurable, he's just not with the team anymore. So you don't say, well, the Cavs were missing Ricky Rubio. But both teams undermanned, but the Pacers are just not good, and they're on the road, and they're up on the Cavs pretty much the entire game, or at least through 3 quarters. And then the Cavs unleash an avalanche on them in the fourth quarter to start. 3 minutes and 10 seconds into the fourth quarter, the Cavs had outscored the Pacers 19-0 and turned a 68-61 deficit into an 80-68 lead. And they cruised the rest of the way. And not only did the Cavs win the game by double digits, they covered the spread. So just a remarkable performance by the Cleveland Cavaliers. And the Cavalanche was ignited by Jetty Osman and assisted by Kevin Love. Osman and Love were basically responsible for the Cavalanche. Osman, interesting because in the first half, he was 0 for 6 from the field and it scored just 2 points. Second half, he wound up scoring 20 and was lights out from anywhere on the court, but specifically from 3. And Kevin Love continues his magical season, his incredible run, with another good game last night. And I had tweeted this out. When was the previous time that Kevin Love had this much fun playing basketball? And I thought, well, okay, people would say, oh, of course he had fun during the Cavs, LeBron 2.0, 4 runs to the finals, 1 title in 15-16. So at the very least, you're going to tell me that Kevin Love had fun in 15-16 that was on the level of this. And I'm not so sure about that because as great as the end result was, I don't know that it wasn't relief for Kevin Love and even relief for other guys on this team. Yes, the relief begat joy once the title was realized. But to that point, seemed like there was a lot of stress involved. And, playing with LeBron can be tough. Regular seasons with LeBron can be tough. Yes, the Cavs were winning a lot of games in LeBron 2.0, and we're forever grateful for that 4-year run, and it was magical in the playoffs, no question about it. But the regular seasons didn't seem to be as enjoyable as this one. And then once you got into the postseason, the pressure of winning every game and the pressure of having LeBron and trying to get to the finals, it seemed to wear on guys, especially Kevin Love. So I don't know that he enjoyed it in the classic sense of the word as much as he is enjoying this regular season. That doesn't devalue what was done with the Cavs in that 4-season span, 4 finals, 1 title. It's just to say that you see a Kevin Love who has returned to just unbridled joy and fun in playing basketball. He's coming off the bench. The Cavs are keeping him relatively healthy. They're limiting his minutes. He's producing at a very high rate in those minutes. And he's become a leader on this team. And I know the cynics, including me, I was a cynic of Kevin Love not long ago. In fact, last season. The cynics will say, well, gee, the guy's making $30 million a year. What do you expect? I mean, what do you want? Of course he's going to have fun. He's making $30 million a year. This is a third of a 4-year guaranteed $120 million extension that he signed. You better have fun if you're making $30 million to play, basketball. But the fact of the matter is Kevin Love wasn't in the first 3 seasons post LeBron 2.0 in the rebuild portion. It was not a good run for him. So to see this is really cool, and the young guys love him, and he has embraced the leadership role. He's embraced the mentor role, the grandpa love or the uncle love or whatever you want to call him. He looks in the best shape he's been in probably 10 years physically. And mentally the way it's going, he's in great shape. So to have Kevin Love doing what he's doing on top of everything else is a testament to, yes, Kevin Love, but J.B. Bickerstaff, the head coach of the Cavaliers. J.B. Bickerstaff is doing a marvelous job with this team. He's pushing all the right buttons. He knows when to sub guys out, when to sub guys in, when to ride hot hands, when to continue to ride cold hands, because honestly, anybody can ride hot hands. But Bickerstaff has shown that he will ride a guy who is struggling in the first half and continue to run him out there, as he did with Osman yesterday against the Pacers. He doesn't give up on guys, and he'll try different things, and he'll go with unconventional lineups against certain teams in certain situations. He's always thinking out there. And J.B. Bickerstaff has his players' backs 100% of the time. I love that he grinds on the officials the entire game. He wants the Cavaliers to get the respect that other teams do. And I know that you have to earn it in the NBA. You have to win consistently to perhaps, wink, wink, get the benefit of the doubt on an official's call sometimes. But the good news is Bickerstaff has put the officials on notice saying, hey, I'm not going to sit here and allow you to not make enough calls for my team over the course of a game. We deserve to get the benefit of the doubt because we are playing at a high level. So love Kobe Altman, love J.B. Bickerstaff, love the entire team. Can't wait for the next game. And probably the best news of all this is this isn't a fluke. This is not a fluke. This is not a start anymore. I mean, sometimes you talk about a start being, 10, 15, even 20 games. Well, when you're 54 games in, that's not a start. That's a trend, okay? And you've only got 28 games left for the Cavs in the regular season. Let's see, 54, 28, 82, yeah. And So it's not a fluke. And when I mentioned those lineup, that 9-man that Captain Kirk put out, I mean, Darius Garland, super young. LeVert, 27, assuming you retain him. Lauri Markkanen, young. Mobley, young. Allen, young. Love, the elder statesman, mid or low 30s, though. Mid to low 30s. I thought he was 33 or 34. Okoro, young. Jetty Osman, reasonably young. Rondo's up there. But again, he's a much smaller piece than Love. So this is a team that can be a force in the Eastern Conference for a while, not just this season. All right, when we return on the other side of the upcoming break, we'll talk NFL, the Pro Bowl, and the Super Bowl.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
Hey everyone, I'm Holly Wetzel.
And I'm Jeremy Powell.
And we are your hosts of The Orange is Oranger, a Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We give you all the dog pound coverage that you'll need each week to get you ready for kickoff and beyond.
Don't miss our breakdowns of each week's matchups, game recaps, and any and all news out of Berea to feed your Browns appetite. As we all know, Holly, dogs got to eat.
That's right, Jeremy. Hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode of The Orange is Oranger Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
The R&R podcast going to be rocking and rolling with you because football season is underway. College, Ohio State, the Power Fives, the MAC, the Browns. Michael Regai, are you ready to rock and roll with some football?
Kenny, I've been ready. This is our time of year. This is what R&R is all about. We're going to be with you every week. Kenny just said it. Browns, NFL, Ohio State centric. So you got to stay with us all fall and winter long here on R&R.
That's right. The Regai and Rhoda podcast coming to you here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Subscribe now and don't miss a show.
Hey, I'm Jason.
And I'm Gary, and we love ball cards.
And if you love ball cards too, good news. You just found your new favorite podcast. From breaks to grading.
And from collecting to flipping, join us on the Ball Card Show.
The sports podcast for the sports collector.
Welcome back to the Dennis Manoloff Show, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. The producer for today's show is Jordan Powell. Wanted to take this segment to talk about the NFL Pro Bowl first and then the Super Bowl second. I mean, the Pro Bowl and the ancillary stuff, the Pro Bowl skills challenge, it was all this weekend, and it was just a disaster. I mean, it's incredible that for as great as the NFL regular season product is, and it is great, I submit the best pro sports entertainment value in the world. And I don't care what the footballers say, what the outdoor soccer guys say. Give me NFL football any day of the week, twice or 3 or 4 times on Sundays. So the NFL regular season product is awesome. The postseason product is just as awesome, if not more so, obviously, because of the stakes being as high as they are. Super Bowl is incredible. But Pro Bowl weekend, oh, yikes. And I know you don't have to watch it, but you know what? As they say, I watched it so you didn't have to. The game itself is not even a game. It's just guys jogging and walking and horsing around. And what's amazing is there's even point spreads on this. It's amazing there's even interest at all in this. But because it's the NFL, people watch. And I'm sure the NFL Pro Bowl ratings were good enough, and they probably trounced a lot of baseball ratings or, even NBA or NHL. But It's just unwatchable to me, and yet I do it. It's like car crash watching, I guess. I don't know, though, what the NFL could do. It's easily the worst of the 4 all-star games among the 4 major pro sports in North America. I would rank baseball's all-star game first, the NBA second, the NHL's third, and then the NFL's fourth, a distant fourth. But what are you going to do with the NFL Pro Bowl? I have said that you don't even need to play it. You don't even need to go through the farce. Honor these guys with the Pro Bowl distinction. Honor them with the starting nods and the reserves and all that other stuff. But you don't need to play the game. Not when it's that. Not when it's that slop fest and that ugly of a whatever that is. Like a walkthrough with pads and a helmet on. And the reason I don't blame the players, though, and for that matter, I don't blame the NFL either, because what are you supposed to do? If I'm a player and I get in the Pro Bowl, I am not busting my tail in a Pro Bowl after the season's over and potentially injuring myself and costing myself serious bank and maybe ending my career. You never know. One false move in a Pro Bowl and you could tear your ACL and you might never be the same. Or you could sprain your ankle and you might never be the same, or break a bone somewhere. The NFL is such a violent sport, and these guys had just got done playing 17 games, not 16. Some of them missed games, of course, but the schedule was at least 17 games. I got no problem at all with players not wanting to put 2% effort into that game. But what are you going to do? Play it in the middle of the season when they're No, it's not part of the regular season. You don't want to play it in the middle of the season and make it even worse. Guys potentially get hurt if you're trying to, raise the credibility of the game. You don't want to have it where players actually go all out and then potentially get injured. So the NFL is in a quandary where that's concerned, and the players do the smart thing by not going all out and hurting themselves. The skills competitions aren't good either. I'm surprised that they don't do a better job dressing up the skills competitions and, import more fans in to watch it in more of a stadium setting. Maybe you say it was because of COVID, but my experience of watching these skills competitions in the NFL Pro Bowl week, there haven't been that many people watching them anyway. So that's my 2 cents or 3 cents about the NFL Pro Bowl. The Super Bowl, though, is all we care about now. And it's Bengals against the Rams. This is probably going to be my final podcast before the Super Bowl. So, I'll talk about it briefly here and give a prediction. The Bengals are an amazing story, rags to riches, 6 total victories the previous 2 seasons, including 4-11-1 last season. And now they're in the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow, in his second season as an NFL player, is in his first Super Bowl. The Cleveland Browns as a franchise have never gone. That's tough to take, especially when you know that the Bengals are the reigning AFC North champions. And presumably you're going to have to deal with the Bengals for years to come if you're the Cleveland Browns. On the other side of it, the Los Angeles Rams are loaded, and they have stars everywhere, including OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr., who began his season with the Browns. So that's another OIC. And as I look at this game, I think that the Rams are going to win convincingly, but I've thought that when the Bengals faced the Titans, and I thought that when the Bengals faced the Chiefs. The Titans in the divisional round and the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. And guess what? The Bengals pulled them out in both times. So with Joe Burrow, anything's possible, I guess. And he's been incredibly fun to watch. That offense is dynamic, although the line is a sieve or can be a sieve, and it goes up against the best pass rush win rate in the NFL, the Los Angeles Rams, led by Aaron Donald and now Von Miller as his wingman off the edges, or Donald's in the middle and more so, but he bounces around. Miller is an edge rusher specific, but you would think the Rams would be able to dominate in the trenches and put Burrow in harm's way constantly, and the Bengals wouldn't be able to get out of their own way. But the Bengals have proved the doubters wrong all season, and therefore, who knows? And with the Rams, yeah, they have firepower, but sometimes they have played down to a certain level or they've sputtered. So I don't know that they, are automatically going to dominate from stem to stern. So my prediction, a bit of a hedge, is I think it's going to be a close game. I think the Rams will pull it out. So once again, I am doubting Burrow, I guess. But I think the Rams will pull it out late. I'm expecting it to be an entertaining Super Bowl. I think the Bengals will dink and dunk the Rams to mitigate and neutralize that pass rush. And, we shall see. But a couple of great offensive minds in Zach Taylor of the Bengals and Sean McVay of the Rams. McVay looking for redemption after a couple of years ago when he did not have a good game by his own admission in the loss to the Patriots. But this time, McVay has Matthew Stafford as opposed to Jared Goff. And Goff did a nice job for the Rams to help him get to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, but he's no Matthew Stafford. Stafford has the ability to stretch the field like Goff never has. And quite honestly, when I look at Matthew Stafford, I'm thrilled for the guy. I love the guy. I think he's an awesome player. I'm really happy that he got out of, Detroit finally. And in his first season with the Rams, is going to the Super Bowl. I think it was 12 seasons with the Lions. Yeah, he was the 209 number one overall pick. So 9 through 20 is 12 years. And he deserves it. He absolutely deserves this reward because going into this year, he was 0-3 in the playoffs in his career. And this year he's 3-0. So think about how the coin has flipped for Stafford. Now 3-3 in his career, but 3-0 this year. And just to me, from the outside, a great dude, team-oriented. All he wanted to do was win Detroit. It just didn't happen for him. Now he's got his chance, and he's taken full advantage of it. And I also like Joe Burrow a lot. Ohio kid, has embraced his Ohio roots. Ohio State transfer, yes, but he loves to talk about his days at Ohio State. He doesn't run away from them at all. He went from Ohio State to LSU where he blossomed and led the Tigers to that undefeated season in 2019 and, became the number one overall pick in 2020 in the NFL. So Burrow and Stafford, I can't think of very many quarterbacks other than those two that I'd like to see in a Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers comes to mind. Josh Allen, maybe. Justin Herbert. But Patrick Mahomes, if it wasn't going to be Burrow, it was going to be Mahomes, again. But I wouldn't have minded that because I like Patrick Mahomes. But to have a quarterback matchup like this for me is a joy because I like both of them a lot. And I expect both of them to figure out a way to perform well this upcoming Sunday in the Super Bowl. So I'm expecting the Rams to win by a close margin, but who knows with the NFL, given that it's final game that matters, based on how the season went, how the regular season went, and how the playoffs have gone, nothing would surprise me in the Super Bowl. All right, when we return on the other side of the upcoming break, we will wrap with a little talk about the Olympics.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. We read one book a month and then we talk about it. Books like Stephen King's The Shining or Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. If If you're on the hunt for book recommendations and enjoy sparkling conversation, come read along with us and then listen in.
Hello, this is Don Mike Mendoza, the host of the Producing While Asian podcast. Join us to listen in on conversations with everyone who identify from producers to non-producers who all are part of the AAPI community. There's all that and more on the Producing While Asian podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network.
This is Mike Voorhees, co-host of a Swing and a Tribe MLB podcast. If you love Cleveland Indians baseball, then this is the pod for you. We've got you covered each week as we talk about all the games, breaking news, trades, the roster, all things Tribe. You're going to love it. Go Tribe.
Welcome back to the Dennis Manoloff Show, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. The producer for this program is the great Jordan Powell. We'll wrap the pod with a quick talk about the Olympics, the Beijing Olympics, Beijing 2022. I've been on record as saying I don't agree with the decision to send an athletic delegation to the games. In other words, I was in favor of a boycott, a full boycott, not just a diplomatic boycott. It didn't turn out that way, and the games have been underway for a few days now, and yeah, their highlights are being provided, and athletes are having life-changing moments. No doubt, I love my country. I love the United States. I want all the athletes to succeed now that they're there. When I advocated a boycott, I wasn't advocating it because I didn't like the athletes. Of course, I love those men and women who devote their lives to, these moments in time, if you will. The reason I was advocating a boycott was because it's going to be in Beijing, and is now in Beijing, in China, the home of the coronavirus, all of the human rights abuses that the Chinese have overseen, specifically the Chinese Communist Party. Now, we don't talk about the people of China when we criticize, or at least I don't, and most people I know with rational minds don't criticize the Chinese people. They're criticizing the CCP, the authoritarian, totalitarian, vicious regime that is the Chinese Communist Party led by Xi Jinping. That's why I didn't want to see our athletes go there. And what was interesting was basically on the eve of the games, Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives in the United States of America, warned U.S. athletes not to speak out against China's human rights abuses because of how the Chinese Communist Party might respond. Nancy Pelosi said that, not me, not John Jones on a street corner or Jane Smith in a house in the hills. Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House of Representatives, quote, "I would say to our athletes, you are there to compete. Do not risk incurring the anger of the Chinese government because they are ruthless. I know there is a temptation on the part of some to speak out while they are there. I respect that, but I also worry about what the Chinese government might do to their reputations, to their families." I laugh and I cry because Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House in the United States of America, said to the athletes at the Beijing Games, the United States specific athletes, don't risk incurring the anger of the Chinese government because they are ruthless. And she worried about, quote, the Chinese government, what the Chinese government might do to their reputations, to their families. So I'm sitting there going, wow, like for the first time seemingly in forever, I agree with something that came out of Nancy Pelosi's mouth. And that, if that's not a case, that quote right there, and there were more, by the way, there were more quotes from Pelosi, but that one jumped off the page, jumped off the TV screen for me when I heard it. If that's not a quote that says we should have boycotted, I don't know what is. And Pelosi went on to say, well, we're going to cheer on our athletes and, we want them to do well, but just be careful, just watch yourself. And the fact that you have to say that about a host country for the Olympic Games should tell you everything you need to know. That country should not have been allowed to host the Olympic Games, given the human rights abuses, including, of course, the Uyghur genocide and the concentration camps with the Uyghur Muslims. And what they've done with, what they're going to do, unfortunately, scarily with Taiwan. And it's just so many bad things that the CCP stands for. And yet they get rewarded by the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, with this Beijing Games. I pray for every one of our athletes that they go over there, they compete their hearts out, and they come home safely. And I wish them the best. I absolutely do. But I wish we would have boycotted. All right. Thank you very much for listening. And we really appreciate it. We'll talk to everybody soon.